The rain in Bellevue looked expensive on the glass. It slid in thin lines down the two-story windows and pooled in the seams of the flagstone patio. Inside, the chandelier threw warm gold on a table that gleamed like a magazine spread. I turned 70 under those lights and could taste metal in the back of my throat. My glass of red trembled. I was holding it too tight. Jason walked in from the kitchen with a polished smile and a towel over his shoulder. He wore a navy sport coat that fit like it remembered him at 25. "Happy birthday, Mom," he said. He kissed my cheek. The kiss hovered more than it landed. "Thank you," I said. My voice was small in that big room. Britt appeared with a bottle of Barolo and a stack of linen napkins. Her dress was black silk that caught the light. She had the kind of face contour that comes from a professional. "We opened the good one for you," she said. She tilted the label toward me and waited for recognition. "It looks lovely," I said. I always said the polite thing. My fingers were cold around the stem. I could smell roasted garlic and lemon zest and clean glass. A La Marzocco chrome machine squatted on the marble counter behind Britt, gleaming like a small spaceship. It hissed once and went quiet. The kids shuffled in, offered hugs that landed sideways, then drifted upstairs with their phones and their new shoes that did not squeak. The dining room was the kind that made you sit up straighter. 12 chairs, china that clicked when set down, a long run of glass along the far wall that gave you the lake and the night, and your own reflection layered together. The reflection looked like it belonged to someone else. The woman in it had a cardigan with thinning elbows and a neckline stretched in one place where the hanger had warped it. Her hair was neat. She had tried. "Make a wish," Britt said. She set a small cake in front of me with 7 thin candles. $10 a candle, my neighbor would have joked. The flames leaned toward the vent. My wish tasted like coffee I could not afford. The cheap jar back in Kent sat next to a loose burner and an old kettle with a handle that bit your palm. The window there stuck in winter. The smell there was damp carpet and detergent from the shared laundry. My keys there made a noise when I set them down, a small clatter on a particle board counter, a sound that said rented. "Blow them out," Jason said, soft as if he was soothing a client. I blew. The smoke rose and curled. Britt clapped. Jason smiled. The room held still like the photo before it blurs. The doorbell cut through. Jason went pale. His hand flexed and opened once. "You expecting someone?" he asked Britt. She shook her head and put the Barolo down too fast. The crystal made a clean ring against the wood. Something white along the rim caught the chandelier. The bell rang again, shorter and sharper. Britt smoothed her hair and took a breath. She walked to the foyer. The house swallowed her steps. A voice that had lived in my phone and my memory for years rang out full and alive. "There she is." Heels clicked on stone. Perfume followed. Citrus and something bitter beneath. Ava Quinn swept into the dining room with a gift wrapped in silver paper and a bottle of Sancerre that glowed pale in her hand. Gray-tailored suit, hair tucked behind one ear, earrings that winked when she turned her head. She saw me and her face broke open. "Rosie," she said. She hugged me like I was the only person in the room. Warmth through fabric. A long press that erased a long winter. "Ava," I said into her shoulder. My voice found itself there. "You did not tell me." "Surprise," she said. She set the wine next to the cake and took the chair on my right as if it had been waiting for her all night. Jason arrived at the doorway on time to be late. "Aunt Ava," he said. His smile was careful at the edges. "We did not know you were coming. That is what makes it a surprise," she said. She draped her coat over the back of her chair and put a hand on my wrist. Her palm was dry and steady. "How is our birthday, girl?" "Fine," I said. I had practiced that word. It fit everywhere and meant nothing. Dinner came in courses that did not touch. Bitter greens with shaved fennel, salmon with herb skin that crackled, potatoes that held butter like a secret. The wine ran ruby in the glasses. The machine on the marble exhaled another soft hiss as if to remind us that better tastes existed. "What have you been up to these days?" Rosie Ava asked. Light voice, sharp eyes. "Reading," I said. "Walking." "In the rain," she said. "Seattle insists." Britt smiled at her plate. "You should try a yoga class in Bellevue," she said. "Balance, core, it does wonders." "I will look into it," I said. My balance had been fine since 19. It was my footing that had gone. Jason reached for the salt he did not need. "The boys made varsity," he said. His fork tapped twice. Tuition went up again this year. You know how it is. I did not. I knew the price of russet potatoes when the sticker read markdown. I knew the sound of a bus pulling out without you because you decided to walk. Ava topped up her own glass and set the bottle down with a gentle click. She studied the thin line of wine trembling to quiet. Her voice softened. Rosie, can I ask you something simple? Are you enjoying the $500,000 trust David left you? The room turned the color of the lake at night. My ears filled with a fine buzz. Trust. 500,000. She said it like an address we all knew. The fork in Jason's hand stopped halfway to his mouth. Britt's fingers tightened around her napkin until the linen creased. The chandelier hummed. I do not know what you mean, I said. I heard it land in the space like it was not mine. Confusion makes its own accent. Ava's face did something I knew from the old days when she negotiated vendor contracts, and the other party tried to lie. The softness closed, a door I could not see but felt. The trust David set up before he died, she said. I sat in Ethan Rowe's office when he signed it, irrevocable. $4,000 a month to you for life. I looked at Jason. He looked past me toward the windows, as if the night could say something that would save him. Britt stood abruptly. Her chair skittered back an inch and knocked the baseboard. I need the bathroom, she said. She left without taking her glass. Jason, Ava said. She did not raise her voice. What did you do with that money? He licked his lips and made his voice light. Aunt Ava, I think there is a misunderstanding. There is not, she said. There's a paper trail. I was there. She touched the stem of her glass. Her nail clicked once on the crystal. Rosie, do you get the monthly payments? I kept my hands in my lap so no one would see the way they shook. I thought about my kettle back in Kent and the chalky taste of water heated in metal that remembered years. I thought about the brown jar with the cracked lid and the way the coffee smelled like cardboard. I thought about all the keys in my pocket and how none of them fit the door I was sitting behind now. I have never heard of any trust, I said. Ava put her hand back on mine. It was a dock nailed into a shore I had forgotten. I am calling Ethan, she said. Jason's chair made a sound when he shifted. Not loud, sharp. Aunt Ava, that is not necessary, he said. We can talk. We can handle this as a family. Ava was already scrolling. We are a family, she said, which is why we are going to use real names for things. She lifted the phone to her ear and waited. Ethan, it is Ava Quinn. I am at Jason's house with Rosie. We need you to come with the file on the Hale Trust. Yes, tonight. The machine on the marble hissed again as if on cue. The room held its breath and then exhaled through copper pipes. A bead of condensation slid down my glass and made a small wet circle on the tablecloth. Jason wiped his forehead with his napkin. His wedding ring flashed once under the light. He was sweating like it was summer. Mom, he said. His tone switched to the old one, the boy voice. Let me explain. Later, Ava said, when the documents are here. The rain pressed harder against the glass. Outside, the dark lawn glowed in patches where lights caught water. Inside, reflections stacked. Me, Ava, Jason, empty chair, tall windows, a house that stood on something I could not see. Britt came back, eyes rimmed, pink lips set. She picked up her glass. Her hand shook. The crystal ticked against her ring. She set it down. The sound was clean and true and then wrong. A hairline crack opened along the rim. It ran delicate and pale from lip to stem. Ava did not look away from Jason. Ethan is on his way, she said. We are opening the file tonight. The chandelier hummed. The machine hissed and went still. The crack in the glass looked like a white thread across the table. The house held its shape around us, all glass and quiet. The rain softened. You could hear it change on the panes, a hush that pressed close and then let go. I watched the crack in the rim of Britt's glass like it might speak. Headlights swept the driveway. A door closed. Steps came even and quick. Britt flinched at the bell. Jason folded his napkin into tighter and tighter squares. Ethan Rowe looked like the kind of man who had never lost a document. Dark suit shoes that did not squeak, a briefcase that had the shine of things rubbed often. He nodded to each of us in turn. His eyes landed on me and settled there for a second longer. Mrs. Hale, he said. Ethan, we have spoken on the phone in another lifetime. He looked at Jason. Your father trusted careful systems. He signed with a steady hand. The smell of roasted lemon had faded. The kitchen lights were cooler now. Ethan set the briefcase on the table and clicked it open. Paper made a soft rush as he drew files out one at a time and arranged them like a precise game. Ava moved her plate aside. She slid a linen napkin toward me, as if she expected there might be small disasters. Her hand had that same dry warmth. She rested it on my forearm and let it be. Jason cleared his throat. "Aunt Ava, Mom, we are all tired. Maybe this can wait until tomorrow." "It is not midnight," Ava said. "We can tell time." Ethan placed a stapled document in front of me. "This is the trust instrument," he said. "David Hale settler, Jason Hale trustee, Rosemary Hale lifetime beneficiary. The instrument is irrevocable. The distribution clause is clear." He touched a line with a capped pen. $4,000 per month to you, Mrs. Hale, on the first business day of each month for the duration of your life. Adjusted upward if the trust corpus benefits from market growth. The word life felt heavy and then light. It floated in the air over the paper. My name in clean black letters under it. "I have never received a payment," I said. Ethan nodded once. He did not change expression. "I will show you the movement history." He pulled a stack of statements. "Here is the initial funding. Proceeds from the Ballard House sale and life insurance. The first transfer out is $50,000 to a title company in Bellevue. A week later, a wire of $100,000 to a contractor that lists a remodel line. $30,000 to a luxury auto dealer. And a series of payments to Lakeview Academy beginning that same summer." Britt's chair creaked. "Those are family expenses," she said. "We live as a unit. The kids needed a safe roof and good schools. It is not like we were flying to Cabo every month." Ava did not look at her. "The trust is not the family's. It is Rosie's." Jason's voice sharpened. "Dad named me trustee for a reason. He knew I would make smart decisions for the whole family." "A trustee is a fiduciary," Ethan said. He kept his tone level. "Your duty is to administer for the benefit of the named beneficiary. You can invest prudently. You cannot divert funds for your own benefit. You cannot substitute your judgment for your mother's needs. You are also required to send monthly statements and tax reports. I do not have copies addressed to Mrs. Hale. Do you?" Jason looked at the windows again. Outside, the lawn lights cut the yard into low green plains. Rain dripped off the eaves into a thin silver line. His reflection in the glass looked like a man backed into himself. "I intended to repay," he said. He sounded younger than his tie. "I thought if we got ahead, the trust would grow. It was temporary." "How long is temporary?" Ava said. She watched the wine steady in her glass. 5 years is a long time to hold your breath." I looked at the paperwork and tried to see it as more than shapes. My eyes slid over the numbers. The page lifted and settled with my breath. I thought of the box of documents in my hall closet in Kent. I had taken it out once, sat on the floor, and touched envelopes as if they might change me. I had believed my son when he said there were debts. I had believed that love meant signing where someone you loved tapped their finger. Ethan placed a smaller sheet beside the trust. "This is a disbursement schedule that shows nothing has been sent to the beneficiary," he said. "There is also a clause that appoints a successor trustee if the trustee is unable or unwilling to perform duties. It names me as the default advisor to consult if there is a dispute." Britt rubbed the crease into her napkin until the weave fuzzed. "We did not do this to hurt anyone," she said. "We had a lot coming at us at once. Marisol would have said to stop swallowing things that burned on the way down. It was her kitchen table I had cried on in November when the heat went out for 2 days. She had wrapped my hands around a mug and told me to call my sister. I had laughed and said Ava was always on a plane. I had stood at my bland window and watched rain and told myself the feeling in my chest was weather. I walked instead of taking the bus, I heard myself say. It came out small, like I had told a secret to the wrong room. I watered down coffee to make it last 6 days. I sold my winter coat to pay rent once. I did not tell anyone because I thought I was supposed to be good at being quiet. Jason flinched. Then he built his face back into something arranged. "Mom, I did not know it was that bad. You never said." "You did not ask," Ava said. Ethan gathered the stack with 2 fingers and squared it to the table. "Mrs. Hale," he said, and his voice found me. "You have a number of options. I am not here to press you. I am here to make sure you understand exactly where you stand. The facts are simple. The trust exists. It was funded at approximately $500,000. The designated distributions were not made. The trustee used the funds for non-beneficiary purposes. Jason pushed his chair back and stood. He pressed both hands to the table and leaned in. "We can fix this without paperwork. I can make it right." Ava tilted her head. "How?" He opened his mouth and closed it again. His eyes went to Britt. She looked at the La Marzocco at the chrome. Her face shifted through sorry and blame and landed on fear. The espresso machine hissed like it wanted to speak. A little steam curled and vanished. The smell reached me. It smelled like what coffee could be when it was made with intention. Ethan slid a pen from his jacket pocket and set it on the trust document without comment. He did not look at Jason. He looked at me and only me. "Do you want me to assume advisory control now?" he said. "We can secure what remains tonight and begin formal recovery. I can petition to remove the current trustee if needed, or we can leave the structure intact and draft a settlement that compels repayment and compliance." The words were clean. My heartbeat was not. I pressed my palms together under the table. I had spent 5 years waiting to be asked a real question. My mouth was dry. The chandelier hummed. The rain softened again, that Seattle hush that always sounded like it knew more than it told. Britt sat very straight. "Rosie," she said, "please remember the boys. They have soccer. They have their friends in this district. This will make everything harder for them." Ava's eyes cut to her. Then Ava turned her face to me and let it soften in a way that did not invite weakness. "You owe no explanations to anyone," she said. "You can speak now." I looked at Jason. He had the same eyes he had at 4 when he brought me a broken toy to fix. He had the same eyes he had at 16 when he asked for the keys and did not kiss my cheek before he left. He had my husband's jawline, the one that made a dent under the ear where the razor always missed a place. He smelled like cologne and nerves. He watched me the way you watch a decision that could change your address. There were other rooms in my mind. The kitchen in Kent with linoleum that curled at the corners. The hallway where the light flickered on an old timer. The laundry machines that needed quarters and then sometimes refused to run. The taste of instant coffee when it went thin on day 6. The weight of a plastic grocery bag when I had carried potatoes and a loaf of bread and apples bruised on one side because they were cheaper. Ava's hand came back to my forearm. The touch held me to the moment. Ethan's pen waited. The crack in Britt's glass shone white as a fishing line across dark water. I leaned forward. My breath made the page shift again. "Before I answer," I said, and I looked at Ethan, "I need to see everything, all of it, every transfer, every receipt, every place my name should have been and was not." I turned my head to Jason, "And I want to hear you say it out loud." He swallowed. His throat moved. He did not speak. "Say the words," Ava said. She was not asking. He finally looked at me. There was a long second where I thought he would try to break time with his silence. Then he nodded once small. "I took your money," he said. "I used it. For this house, for tuition, for the car. I told myself I would make it right, and I did not." The words did not fix the air, but they cleared a path through it. Ethan nodded. He reached into the case and produced a thin folder separate from the rest. "Here are the bank authorizations for the trust account," he said. "We can move immediately to secure what remains. I can contact the bank now to restrict access to the trustee. With your permission, Mrs. Hale." Jason's face tightened. "You cannot freeze it tonight. The boys have field fees due. The utilities for this month are auto-paid." Britt stiffened. "We can figure this out. We do not need to overreact." Ava looked at me again, not at them. "Rosie." I let my fingers rest on the folder. The paper felt cool and exact. Somewhere in the house, a refrigerator motor hummed on. The steam-wand sigh from the espresso machine settled into the room's quiet, as if it had been part of the house forever. Ethan held his phone in his hand without unlocking it. He was ready. His attention did not lean forward or back. It sat with me in the present. I looked at him and nodded once. "Call the bank," I said. He tapped and spoke in a tone that had no tremor. He said my name. He said the trusts. He said the word restrict. He listened and thanked and confirmed. He hung up and wrote a note on a small card with a date and a time. "The account is restricted to beneficiary approval," he said. "No transfers without your consent." Britt's breath went out in an audible way. Jason's jaw moved as if he was chewing something that had gone wrong. Ethan lifted his face to me. "Mrs. Hale," he said, and the question was clean. Do you want to file for removal of the trustee and open proceedings to recover funds, or do you want to pursue a private settlement under counsel right now? The rain gentled on the glass. Somewhere upstairs a floorboard made a small sound under a step. My hands were steady on the table. I could feel the shape of my own fingers against the wood. I looked from Ethan to Ava to Jason, and then back to the folder. The room waited. The pen on the paper waited. The crack in the glass caught the chandelier again and glowed like a line someone had drawn because they finally found a ruler. I want you to take control, I said. My voice did not reach for anyone. Petition to remove the trustee. Secure every dollar that is left. Ethan did not nod big. He wrote the words I said on a legal pad, then looked at Jason. You will receive formal notice, he said. Effective immediately, you do not move funds or make representations on behalf of this trust. Jason sat. His hands were empty and still. Britt stared at the cracked glass as if the line might walk itself backward. Ava rose and helped me with my coat. Her palm steadied my shoulder for one breath. She did not say a word while we crossed the foyer. The front door opened to wet night air. The rain had turned to a finer mist. It touched my face and cooled the heat in my cheeks. Outside, the house shone like a showroom. Light took the edges of the windows and polished them to a hard line. The driveway smelled like wet stone and cedar. Ava clicked the key fob and her car unlocked with a polite chirp. We sat without starting the engine for a moment. The wipers made a slow pass and cleared a clean stripe in the world. You can come home with me, she said, or I can take you to Kent. Kent, I said. The word felt like a destination I owned. I need my own walls. She drove with the kind of care people bring to New China. The city slid by all sodium and glass. On Union, we stopped at a small cafe with fogged windows. The sign said open in soft red. Inside, a barista in a wool cap pulled a shot and tapped the portafilter like a small hammer. The smell of fresh coffee came for me and did not apologize. Ava ordered an espresso for me and water for herself. The cup was white and heavy. The crema sat like a thin ribbon of brown silk. I wrapped both hands around the porcelain and felt heat stand up the skin on my palms. Rosie, Ava said. She let my name sit. If you want me there when you meet Ethan at his office, say so. If you want me to wait in the hall, say so. I want you in the room, I said, and I want to speak first. She smiled, not with her mouth, with something that eased in her shoulders. Good. By the time we reached my building, the rain had returned to a steady whisper. The stairwell smelled like wet coats and old varnish. I climbed slowly and let the motion thread through me. Inside my apartment, the heat clicked on with a familiar knock. I set my keys on the counter. They made the small clatter that had always told me where I was. I filled the kettle and set it on the burner. The hiss grew and sang. I watched the thin stream of steam and saw the espresso again, that richness in a small cup, the way it had felt like the taste had weight. The kettle boiled. I turned it off. I did not make coffee. I took the box of papers from the hall closet and set it on the table. The tape on one corner had given up and the lid slid off without a fight. Envelopes, a funeral program, a letter with a firm header, the name Rowe and Associates on a business card. I sat and read what I could read and held what I could not. The room was quiet except for the tick of the baseboard heater and the rain stitching the night to the glass. When the phone rang, I answered on the first vibration. Ethan, I said. Mrs. Hale, he said. I have filed the motion to restrict the account. If you are willing, we can meet at my office at 9 tomorrow. We will go through everything and we will discuss a drafted settlement to present to Jason Hale. If settlement fails the petition to remove proceeds, I will be there, I said. Ava will be with me. I will prepare copies for both of you, he said. Sleep if you can. I did not sleep long. Dawn came thin and gray across the blinds. I showered and dressed in the best I had. The cardigan that had once kept its shape. Shoes that did not pinch. I put the cracked coffee jar back into the cupboard and closed the door. Ava was waiting in the lot in a slate car that looked like it knew its way downtown. She handed me a travel mug. Real coffee. It filled the car with a smell that could change what mornings meant. I sipped and felt both the heat and the taste. I did not rush it. Ethan's office sat on a high floor with a view of Elliott Bay. In the lobby, the security guard smiled like he had seen complicated things at 10 in the morning before. The conference room was glass on two sides. The table was a dark slab that carried a faint citrus polish. A car ferry cut across the water and left a white wake that did not last. Ethan arranged documents in stacks with blue flags. "I will begin with a summary," he said. "Then we will set a tone for the meeting with Jason and Britt. You can instruct me to speak. You can speak yourself." "I will speak," I said. Jason came 10 minutes late. He had not shaved, and his shirt looked picked from the dryer in a hurry. Britt wore black and carried a structured bag that did not sag. She took the seat across from me and folded her hands. "Thank you for coming," Ethan said. He did not offer the pretense of small talk. "We are here to resolve a breach of fiduciary duty and to secure the beneficiary's position. You are not here to defend your choices. You are here to agree to a remedy or to hear the consequences if you do not." Jason nodded, then nodded again like he had heard the words, but needed his head to make them real. I slid my chair in, let the legs set on the carpet, and looked at my son. "You will sell the house," I said. "You will transfer every dollar after debt to a new account that Ethan manages for me and only me. You will sell the second car. You will liquidate the brokerage account you opened with trust funds. You will begin monthly payments of $1,000 to me within 30 days, and you will continue until the full amount taken and owed is repaid. If you miss one payment, Ethan files the civil suit and the criminal complaint, and you will tell your boys the truth." Britt inhaled. Her lips parted as if a word had been there and lost its footing. Jason did not look at her. He kept his eyes on mine. The vein at his temple showed in a pale line. "Where will we live?" Britt said. The words came out flat and low. "In a place you can afford," I said. "You will learn what that is." Ethan slid a single document across the table to Jason. "This is a settlement agreement," he said. "It mirrors what Mrs. Hale has said. It includes a confession of judgment that triggers automatically if you default. It includes consent for me to work with the listing agent and the bank on the sale of the property. It includes acknowledgement of breach." Jason touched the paper like it might be hot. He read. His finger followed the lines. He did not rush. Britt leaned in and read too. Her jaw settled into a new angle. When they reached the paragraph about the boys, she stopped and looked up. "That is not necessary," she said. "We can say we are downsizing." Ava spoke for the first time. "No." Britt looked at her like she had been struck. "You do not get to dictate how we speak to our children." Ava's voice was soft and steady. "He does. She does. The truth is the only thing that stands up in the light." Jason put the tip of the pen to the signature line and froze there for a count of 3. He lifted the pen and set it down again. Then he signed. His name moved over the paper in a hand I recognized from a spelling test in 2nd grade. Britt signed where Ethan's blue flags told her to sign. Ethan gathered the pages and checked for initials, dates, full signatures. He placed the executed copy in a new folder and wrote the date in a neat hand on the tab. He pulled a second document from his briefcase. "This is a letter to the bank authorizing me to act as agent for the sale of the house," he said. "Jason, you will countersign. The title company has already been looped in. We will begin today." Jason signed without looking up. He capped the pen and set it on the table. His hands left small damp marks on the wood. He stared at them as if they were maps. A silence sat with us. The city beyond the glass kept moving. A gull slid across the face of the window and then was gone. The ferry's horn sounded once low and full. Jason looked at me like a man who wanted to be 12 again. "Mom," he said, "will you ever forgive me?" I let the question hang. I did not try to hold it up. "I want to feel safe," I said. "You will help me feel that way by doing exactly what you just signed." He nodded. It was small and slow, as if the motion had to push through something dense. Ethan closed the folder and clicked the briefcase lock. The sound was clean and final. My phone buzzed on the table. A number I did not know lit the screen. I let it go to voicemail. The light on the phone pulsed once and went still. The signatures did not make the air lighter. They made it solid. Ethan slid the agreement into a labeled folder and pressed the tab flat. He looked at Jason without sharpening his tone. "You will receive instructions from the listing agent this afternoon," he said. "Cooperate without delay. I will copy counsel on all communications." Britt stood, then sat again. "We need time," she said. "The market needs time." "The agreement includes a 30-day window," Ethan said. "The clock has started." We filed out past the receptionist, who smiled as if the day did not have sharp corners. In the elevator, the floor numbers slid by in amber. My reflection stared back at me from the metal panel. I looked like a woman who had turned a key. The next week moved like a slow tide that pulled hard. Ethan called daily. His voice stayed calm even when the bank did not. There were forms that wanted the same answers 3 different ways. There were emails that arrived with a tone that pretended to be helpful and was not. Ava sat at my table and read every line before I signed. She passed me a pen and watched me write my name like I was laying boards that needed to hold. Jason called Ava twice, asking for more time. She did not promise him anything he had not earned. She repeated the dates. She repeated the clause. She kept her voice gentle, but did not bend. On a Thursday, Ethan called and said there was an issue with the mortgage. There was a second line Jason had opened last year. It cut the equity in a new way. Britt wanted a later closing to cover it. Ethan said he could move the closing 3 days, not 3 weeks. He asked me if I agreed. I said yes. My voice did not shake. That night, Jason asked to meet. He chose a small shop near Pike Place. The walls were brick and the lights were low. The barista moved with the economy of someone who had done this 1,000 mornings. Jason picked a corner table where you could see the street through a pane of glass that had collected a skin of fog. He did not order. I ordered an espresso. The cup came hot and small. The crema held tight at the edges. I lifted it and felt the weight of it in my fingers, the heat through porcelain, the bitter that landed and opened into something deeper. Jason watched my face as if my taste could save him. "Give me 60 days, he said. "The buyers need time. The market has a rhythm." "The agreement says 30, I said. I set the cup down. It made a clean sound. My hand did not wobble. He leaned toward me with his palms up. "I am asking you, not as a trustee, as your son." "You stopped being only my son when you signed the papers that made you my trustee," I said. "You made choices with my name on them. You can make this right with actions, not with a longer story." He sat back. He stared through the glass at a man in a yellow slicker crossing the street. The slicker made a bright slash against the gray. Jason rubbed his jaw as if the motion could animate a different answer. "I did not know you were drinking instant," he said. "I did not know you sold your coat." "You did not want to know," I said. He closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, they were wet. He nodded once as if he had just agreed with a private voice and stood. He left without touching me. The house in Bellevue opened to strangers on a Saturday. I did not go. Ava went. She walked through with the agent and said the right calm things. She watched a couple run hands over the banister and hear the word quartz like a spell. She watched a man check the seals on the windows and nod. She watched a young woman pause in front of the espresso machine and say nothing the way people say everything when they say nothing. On Monday, the agent called Ethan with an offer and a closing date that met the clause. Ethan called me. His voice lifted half a step when he said the number. He read the net after debts like an accountant who respected silence. $200,000 to me after the bank and the lines. Cars sold for more than expected. Small accounts closed and forwarded. The total moved toward $300,000. He did not say we had won anything. He said facts. A few days later, a crew arrived at the house to remove a large pane of glass in the living room. The new owners had different plans for the wall that faced the lawn. Ava stood on the patio and watched them ease the pane out of its frame. The suction cups left dark circles on the surface. The glass came free inch by inch. For a second, it hovered, weight held by quiet machines and 4 men who did not waste words. The air moved into the space the pane had filled, and the room lost its museum hush. Rain smell walked right into the house. The crew wrapped the glass and carried it away in measured steps. Britt told the boys the truth on a Wednesday night. Jason sat at the cramped table of the apartment they had rented on short notice. The boys ate takeout dumplings from a white box and stared at their parents like they had been handed a quiz. Jason spoke without clutching adjectives. He said he had taken money that belonged to their grandmother. He said he had used it. He said he had signed papers to pay it back. The younger boy looked at his noodles. The older boy looked at Jason's hands and then at the wall beyond them. "Why did you take it?" the older one asked. His voice did not rise or break. Jason opened his mouth and closed it again. He swallowed. "I thought I could handle everything he said. I thought I was helping." The older boy put his chopsticks down. He nodded like he had filed something unchangeable. "Britt called Ava that night and asked if we could settle for less. Ava said no. Then Britt asked if I would think of the boys. Ava said I had always thought of them." Ethan kept the cadence. He sent me a 2-page summary of the sale proceeds and the transfers. He had me initial 3 places and sign 1 more. The new trust account opened in my name. The bank manager shook my hand and did not look over my shoulder to see who the real adult was. The day the wire hit, Ethan texted a single sentence: "Funds received and cleared." He followed it with a photo of a bank screen with black bars over the account numbers. The balance sat in clean numbers that did not blink. I stood in my kitchen with my phone and the kettle on and felt the heat from the burner and the cool from the window. The apartment smelled like hot metal and old paint. I set the phone down and took the cracked jar from the shelf. I turned it in my hand. The lid caught on a chip and grated. I put it back. I did not make coffee. I drove to a small shop with a chalkboard menu and bought beans that smelled like chocolate and smoke. I bought a grinder that fit in my palm and felt like a tool. A week later, Ethan emailed the schedule for Jason's first monthly payment. The date was a simple number. I marked it on the calendar by the phone with a blue dot. Ava came by with lunch and a bouquet of flowers from the market that looked like small fireworks captured before they faded. We ate at my tiny table and watched a gull land on the roof opposite and stare at us like a judge who had seen it all. The transfer did not arrive that day. It arrived the next morning with a bank notification that pinged soft. I opened the app and saw 1,000 lined in black, a deposit tagged with Jason's name. It sat there like a small square of ground reclaimed. I did not call him. I did not text him. I went out to the balcony with a cup of coffee that had been ground by my hand and made with water that had just flashed from quiet to boil. The air held a faint damp, even though the sky was a clean blue. A ferry horn sounded low from the bay. The sun found the steam and turned it to a thin white. My phone buzzed. Another notification from the bank. The sale proceeds from the car had cleared. The number was not round, but it moved a column the right way. I set the phone face down on the table. I held the cup in 2 hands and felt the heat through ceramic. Inside on the hook by the door, my new keys hung. House, mailbox. A small brass one for a locker at a building 2 blocks away where I planned to keep canvases dry. They touched each other when I moved the hook and made a sound that did not belong to rented things. Across the room, a small hairline crack ran through the rim of a thrift store glass I had kept out of habit. The crack caught the light and made a thin white line like a line drawn by hand on a map to mark a border that had held for a long time and now had a crossing. Morning built itself with small tasks. I ground beans and listened to the burr turn whole things into something that could dissolve. The kettle lifted to a near whistle and stopped when I clicked it off. The cup warmed my hands, steam braided into the cool air by the window. Ava knocked and came in without waiting. She carried a paper bag and a stack of mail. The bag had pastries that left a lace of sugar on the table. She passed me an envelope from Ethan. The paper inside said words I could follow now. It showed my name where it belonged. It did not speak in someone else's voice. "Walk," Ava said. "Cary Park. The clouds are working at being dramatic." We drove the hill and climbed the steps. The Space Needle stood a quiet white shape against a sky that could not choose a mood. On the overlook, tourists held their breaths for photos. A violinist played under a tree with soft leaves. The city looked like a model set someone built with deep care and then left for us to use. We stood without saying much. The wind brought a thin salt from the bay. Ava tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Do you want to celebrate or sit still?" she said. "Coffee," I said. "The kind that tastes like it means it." She laughed and we found a small shop with a line that moved in a kind way. The barista pressed grounds and wiped the wand. The machine hissed and released. The espresso hit my tongue and opened like a truth told cleanly. We did not toast. We held our cups and watched a dog lie down under a stool and sigh. At home, I hung a small framed print in the kitchen. It was a watercolor of the bay that I liked for its soft edges. The nail went in straight. The frame held level. The glass was thick enough to resist a casual bump. I stood back and saw how it made the wall less blank. Marisol came by with a bundle of herbs and a note from the community center. It was handwritten and simple. Would you speak at our Thursday circle? Women in their 60s and 70s. The room with the stripe of afternoon sun. Marisol had drawn a small star next to the time. You do not have to, she said. She set the herbs in a glass of water and leaned her hip against the counter. You can just come and listen. I will go, I said. I will bring nothing but myself. On Thursday, the room held 10 women and the soft hum of a vending machine in the hall. The chairs were metal with foam that remembered other meetings. A box of tissues sat on the windowsill where the sun drew a bright rectangle on the paint. A woman with silver hair introduced me and sat down. I did not read anything. I told them my name. I told them the smell of a chrome machine in a kitchen too expensive to feel safe. I told them about a glass that cracked in a clean line. I told them about a folder that had my name where my name should be. They did not take notes. They looked at my hands when I moved them, and then at my face. One woman with a soft cardigan asked how I had spoken in a room that made me small. I said I made my words short and put them in the middle of the table. Another asked how to tell grown children things they did not want to hear. I said to say the sentence and stop before it bent. After a few stayed. One showed me a photo of a house her son wanted to buy. Another folded her phone in her hands and did not unlock it. We stood near the door as the sun climbed along the wall and then slid off. A man vacuumed the hallway slowly and smiled when he passed. He did not ask what we were doing. The room smelled faintly of old paper and coffee that had been poured at 8 and forgotten. Jason called on a Sunday. The call went to voicemail. His voice was steady. He said he had made the second payment. He said the boys had started at the public school nearby, and that the cafeteria pizza was not as bad as the older one had feared. He said Britt was working afternoons at a store on Main that sold clothes on consignment. He said his car sounded different and he thought it was the belt. He did not say sorry. He did not ask questions. I listened once and put the phone down. The apartment learned my rhythm. I bought a small rug that felt good under bare feet. I kept the counters clean. I arranged 3 brushes in a jar and set a blank canvas on the easel by the window. I mixed color and watched the first stroke find a place. The brush dragged lightly and left a soft line of gray-blue. The next pull made water become light on paper. Hours passed without concern. The kettle clicked on. The kettle clicked off. Ethan visited once with a folder just to hand me copies in person. He wore the same careful suit. He sat in my chair and accepted a mug like a man who understood the code of kitchens. He asked if the new account felt manageable. I said yes. He told me the next 3 dates in a tone that made them just numbers. He stood to go and paused with his hand on the back of the chair. Paperwork is not an enemy, he said. It is just a language that people use to hide or to reveal. You read it well. I nodded. He left, and the hallway smelled briefly of his cologne and old carpet shampoo. Ava and I took a ferry one afternoon just to cross water and return. We stood at the bow and let wind press clothes to our bodies. The bay rolled low and wide. A boy beside us shouted each time a gull came close and then laughed at his own noise. We stood and did not say what the water looked like. The water made its own statement. On my balcony that evening, I carried out a small plate of sliced pears and a cup of espresso. The cup was clear glass with a thick lip. It fit my fingers. The espresso ran dark and held a line of crema that did not break. The pears tasted clean and cold on the tongue. The sky went from blue to a gray that had room in it. Lights came on over the hills and made a scatter that was not random. Inside the keys on the hook touched with a light sound. It was a household sound and it belonged to me. I moved the hook and listened again. The sound marked the boundary between outside and here. It was not loud. It was enough. A text came from the community center. Next month, same room, same chairs, different names. I typed yes before I could think of a longer answer. The message went and left a small bubble in the corner of the screen. The phone felt warm in my hand. I washed the cup. The water ran hot and left a fog on the glass. I set the cup on the rack and watched the last bead slide down the inside and pause near the rim. It held for a moment and then joined the rest. The apartment settled around me. The heater clicked once and went quiet. The night took its place along the window. The picture on the kitchen wall caught a little of the last light. The bay turned to a stripe of gray in the watercolor, as if someone had lifted color with a cloth and left the memory of it. I turned off the light, and the glass did not glare. It stayed clear. The room breathed. The keys hung, the coffee smell drifted and faded. The city hummed fine and low through the glass. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story.